Howdy, guys. Welcome to night 21 inside the Big Brother All-Stars house. Tuesday night, Wednesday morning. This is Cliff Notes from outside the house. Man, I thought it was going to be a boring week tonight. Got pretty exciting, so we're gonna talk about it real quickly. Now, you see my graphics up there. I'm a little worried about Hurricane Laura hitting here, but we're not here to talk tonight about Hurricane Laura. We're here to talk about Hurricane David because he certainly stirred some things up in the house. A lot to cover, so let's get right into it. Just as a bit of an introduction, again, Janelle and Kaiser on the block. Kaiser's talking to Bailey. He says, look, I don't want to campaign too much because I want the other side to think that I'm just down and out. I'm not in the game anymore. See what happens. Make it a little easier maybe to not see him as a threat going forward after this week if he stays in the house, which he should. Danny and Memphis are talking, and Danny warns Memphis, says, Memphis, you need to be careful. If Bailey or Davon get HOH, they're going to put you on the block. Keep that in mind because David is getting a lot of conversations overnight, but Bailey and Davon are key players in the conversations as well. So keep that in mind. So Memphis is being told Bailey and Davon are going to put you on the block if they get the chance. Meanwhile, Janelle and Kaiser are talking. Kaiser says, hey, no big surprise. David says he's going to vote to keep me, but he also says we're both liars. He doesn't like either one of us. David told Kaiser, said, hey, I was friends with Nicole Anthony. She told me everything. Sounds like David is kind of buying into Nicole's narrative that Janelle and Kaiser had something to do with them being put on the block, and David is very bitter about it and really holding it against them. So that makes it a little tough. Janelle says, based on that and the way David's been acting to her and so brutal, if she stays now, she is gunning for David. She is going for him hardcore. All right, so Memphis and Christmas having a little conversation. Memphis told Janelle that she had his vote to stay. But then he tells Christmas, he said, nah, I just said that. I'm not voting to keep her. She needs to go. They both agree it. It's pretty much a done deal, I think, that Janelle is going home this week. People are just too scared of her. Kaiser will be staying in the house. So there you go with that. All right, quick conversation between David and Cody. All right, again, we're going to be talking about David quite a bit. Cody said that Janelle came to him campaigning a little bit, said she wasn't going to even bother talking to David. Cody said, no, go talk to David, see what you can do. And David is smiling because he knows that he's not going to vote to keep Janelle in the house. But David does mention that he's upset with Kaiser, and the reason being is because they had a nice little conversation in week one, but Kaiser never came back to him in that week to work with him. David needs to stop focusing on the past. Week one was long, ancient history. He needs to focus on what's going forward, but he's a little bitter, little agendas that's affecting some of the game right now, which is unfortunate. So we have that. Christmas and Nicole are talking. Christmas is concerned that Davon would go after Cody and Tyler if she won HOH. Nicole Franzel says, no, I don't think that'll happen. But they're both concerned that Davon could put either or both of them on the block. So again, Davon and Bailey, their names are being mentioned a lot this evening, which is never a good thing, right? So we have that. They're both worried that they could be put on the block if Bailey or Davon have the power. Ian and Kevin are talking. Ian asks Kevin, says, where's your head at? Kevin says, wherever the majority is. Kevin is a non-factor other than he's still kind of talking, throwing people under the bus. But for the most part, Kevin's going to vote however the rest of the house does this week. He doesn't have any big loyalties. Janelle versus Kaiser. He's upset with both of them. He seems like. All right, another conversation. Nicole and Kevin and Ian, they all agree that this is an easy week. No, I don't want easy weeks. That's what we're trying to avoid in Big Brother. So I hope this is the last easy week. Kevin is worried that Kevin has campaigned to Ian and Nicole both, but he hasn't talked to Kevin. Well, Kevin's because you dislike Kaiser so much, perhaps, but he still takes as a personal front that he hadn't been campaigned to for Kaiser. That's kind of funny. Meanwhile, Danny and Bailey are talking. They're saying that people keep talking about the other side of the house, but who is this other side? We don't know who these other people are. Well, here's a clue. If you don't know who is on the other side of the house, if you can't identify targets that aren't in your alliance, you better be worried that at that point, people may be coming within the alliance to pick people off, and it could be you, right? So they do have that discussion. All right, here's another quick little thing just to give you an idea of the tempo of the evening, I guess, or the theme of the evening. Bailey and Danny are talking. Bailey says that Kevin asked her earlier, said, would you be okay being a pawn on the block? Well, when people start saying, would you be okay being a pawn? You got to be a little bit worried. Again, Bailey's name's being brought up. Davon's name's being brought up yet again this evening. All right, another little conversation. Nicole and Ian are talking. Nicole's worried that she warns Ian, says anything you say to Kevin's going to go right to Davon because they're working together. They're trying to keep on a down low, but Nicole is aware, as are a lot of other people. So she says, be very careful. Nicole does say if she wins the HOH, she wants to put Kaiser and a pawn, but her target is the backdoor Bailey. So again, we keep hearing these names, right? So she's ready to get Bailey out the door. Meanwhile, Kevin and Davon are talking. She wants Kaiser out the house, then Memphis, then David. She wants to keep Janelle. Kevin worries, though, that the other side will weaponize Kaiser, pull him in and have him go against Davon and Kevin. Here's the thing. Now we know who the other side is that they were talking about earlier. It sounds like Davon and Kevin are part of the other side. So there you go. All right. Now, this is where it starts getting a little interesting. This is David and Bailey talking and talking about the fact that Janelle is causing friction. She's good at stirring people up, right? Janelle is causing friction. David is saying that he's really worried that he's worried about Jan with regards to Davon, that he thinks that she's getting in Davon's ear about him. Bailey's trying to calm him down, and she's also saying, David, you need to tell Bailey what Janelle is saying about her. Now, what is that? We'll talk about it in just a second because I wasn't aware at the time. But Bailey is saying, hey, she's going to be shocked when she hears this. So let me give her a heads up first, and then you can come in and talk to Davon after that. And so David said, yeah, okay, whatever. So what was said? All right, here's what a lot of what this evening's all about. Supposedly, according to David, Janelle told him that he shouldn't be too comfortable with Bailey and Davon because last week, Davon was voting for Nicole Anthony to stay, or at least trying to get the votes for Nicole Anthony to stay. Did she really say that? I don't remember that conversation. Viewers, tell me in the comments if she did or not. I just don't recall it. But that's what David was saying to Bailey, and now Bailey is passing that on to Davon. And Davon is a little upset to hear that news, and so she is very eager to talk to David about this a little bit further. So we're going to talk about that meeting in just a second. Real quick, another meeting though. Kevin and Davon, Ian was warned, and sure enough, or Kevin's, I don't remember at this point, but sure enough, Kevin immediately goes to Davon. They're talking, or Davon goes to Kevin, says that, hey, Janelle threw me under the bus with David. She said that I was trying to flip the votes, and now she wants to fact check with Janelle, and she thinks that David may be lying about the whole situation. So meanwhile, Enzo and Janelle Janelle's campaigning to Enzo. He says he doesn't know how the votes are going. Janelle campaign says, hey, look, I'm a huge target. Ian, David, Nicole, all three are going to go after me. You know they're going to go after me if I'm still in the house. And she says, I won't go after you. I'll only go after the minions. So I make an easy target if you keep me in the house, Enzo. And she says, I'll be all alone because Kaiser's going to be gone. Enzo's not really committal, but that's her campaign pitch to Enzo. Real quick discussion, Cody and Danny are talking. Discussion about whether they should tell David that Davon is worried about a guy's alliance. And also, should they tell David that Davon was trying to flip the votes on David last week? Everyone is fighting over David, and they're trying to do it by driving wedges into the other relationships that they're tight with. So everyone's fighting for David as a vote, as a pawn, as a loyal soldier type situation. Danny is asking if Cody would put Davon or Bailey on the block. And he says, well, sort of. I'd rather backdoor them. But they're willing to get them out. Their names just keep coming up all night long. Danny says, I agree, but we need to make it happen pre-jury. I don't want them on the jury. Cody is saying that also, he's saying, man, we need to take out Ian as well because he's too close to Nicole Franzel. Well, Cody wants to be tight with Nicole. He wants to be the duo and not have Ian in the mix. So he's still pushing that narrative also. All right, real quick, Tyler and Christmas are talking. Christmas is worried about Davon and Bailey. Again, we hear the names and wants to separate them because she just thinks they're too strong together. Also, she says, if we send Davon home, then that's going to make it easier to bring Bailey a little bit tighter into our alliance. So there we go. All right, now, here's the conversation. This is where it gets a little exciting, a little fun. Bailey and Davon and David are all in the love room downstairs. They're rehashing this conversation that David and Janelle allegedly had. David says, yeah, Janelle told me that. Davon says, well, did you believe her? And he says, no, not really. But he says, but other people said the same thing to me, so it made me a little more cautious. And she says, wait, other people said the same thing? He says, yeah. And so she starts grilling him, said, well, who are these other people, David? Eventually he breaks down. He says, it's like being in a, he gave up the goods. He finally told Davon, said, well, Tyler told me that you were trying to flip the votes last week. Not a good play, David. That was unfortunate. David immediately is called out for not telling Davon, and he said, well, it's because I didn't believe it, so I didn't think it was that big a deal. And she says, well, but you told Bailey. If you told Bailey, why don't you come tell Davon, since it's my name that's getting thrown out there? He didn't have a good answer. He just said, well, sometimes you seem more receptive to me than other times. It just didn't seem proper, or I didn't do it. And he starts back, I'm sorry, I should have done it and everything else. But meanwhile, he said that Tyler was behind it, or said it as well. So that has them Bailey and Davon extremely stirred up. Bailey and Davon are saying, well, now we feel like idiots based on all the stuff we've been telling Tyler and Cody here over the past few days. If we'd known, we would have been able to do something. And he said, I'm sorry. So Davon wants to fact check. David says, hey, if you go to Tyler and start asking him this stuff, it's going to hurt me trying to get in with these guys so we can protect each other. So please don't do that. So eventually she says, well, I'm going to talk to Janelle since she's going home anyway. And David says, I'll talk to Tyler, fact check it a little bit more. We'll find out. That's not good, David. So Bailey and Davon are then together in the bathroom. Bailey says, hey, this idea that Tyler said it as well, that's the first time I heard that. All I heard was Janelle, but I hadn't heard that before. So at this point in time, Tyler and David and Kevin are talking. David asks, hey, did Davon ever campaign against me? Kevin says, no, I never did. It's probably Kaiser who told Janelle that, who then told you that. Kevin later tells Davon about David's question and again throws Kaiser under the bus. It's probably all Kaiser that's behind this, Davon. So second part of the very interesting conversation, Tyler and David are talking. Tyler is just a little bit upset that David mentioned his name as having said that Davon was trying to throw him, trying to flip the votes. Tyler says, man, I can't play HOH next week. And now you've told Davon this, I'm going to be targeted. And David said, no, I'll take care of it. And he said, no, when she comes hard at me, it's because of you and because of what you said, David. You've screwed up my whole game. He's very upset. He's trying to play it, nice and everything, but he says, man, why did you do that? That was a sloppy move, David. And David said, I'm sorry. They got it out of me. I didn't mean to. And Tyler's incredulous that they could have broken him that easy and gotten the information out. He's saying, look, I just developed trust with Davon, and now it's gone. I'll never have that trust with her for the rest of the game. And David, why? He's not happy. And the whole evening, after he goes to bed, he's talking to the cameras and saying, my whole game screwed up. I'll probably be home, Angela, pre-jury, so at least I'll see you real quick. So he's upset. Couple of real quick last ones. Davon and Janelle, they're fact-checking David's claim. Janelle denies that she ever said that. She says, why would I say that, Davon? That makes zero sense. And that's true. I don't think it makes sense. There's no reason that she would say that. Meanwhile, she checks and what else? I don't remember, guys. The important part of it is that David kind of threw Janelle under the bus. Then he threw Tyler under the bus. And now you got both sides that are upset with each other. It's going to create all kinds of fireworks. It's going to be incredibly exciting. David now has people on all sides very mad at him. Here's what it is. So Davon starts talking to Kevin a little bit more. And after Janelle has said her thing, she tells Kevin, she says, I don't trust David at all. I think he's lying about the whole thing. At first he was saying it was Janelle and Tyler. And now after he talks to Tyler, now suddenly saying, oh, it's Kaiser that said it to me. He said, I don't believe words coming out of his mouth. That guy's lying to me. He's got caught in some lies, and I'm not happy with David. And so there's where we're at, guys. Now you've got Davon not trusting the rest of her alliance. Tyler knowing that Davon is now a threat. Their names were already being thrown out before all this stuff happened. So now that this is, I heard the words house meeting mentioned once or twice this evening. So it's going to be exciting. All right, guys, y'all have a great one. SKD 143. Because of the hurricane, I may or may not be here tomorrow night. Pray for Texas and the Louisiana coast. Y'all have a great one, guys. Cheers.